Working man. So, hello and good morning, Chuck. Hello, aloha to Hawaii.
Good morning, Bettina. Good evening for you.
Yes, in Europe. We're happy to have you again here with us this time. Well, this is a very special time actually for all of us. We are very excited as you are coming to Europe. And it's the first live workshop with you, squeezing and hugging everybody within the 3 years. So everybody's really excited about this. The motto for the workshop is "Your destiny is happiness." And in general, before you dive into the theme, I would what came to my mind and what I would like to talk about a little bit as well is the structure of your workshops, because for me at least this is very unique. So you get assigned a buddy, and you are part of a family group, which I haven't ever seen in any other workshops. The buddy work, I just noticed from deep sea diving. And it really means that your life depends on the body. So how did it come to this kind of structure in your workshops?
Well, a couple of things. One thing is that, when you're stuck, when you're in pain, there's just not enough health professionals around to help you out. And if you have a good friend, it's like, especially someone who has some wisdom, it's like that can make all the difference in the world. One of the books I wrote for Germany was called How to Save the World. And the rest of the title is Friends Helping Friends.
Yeah.
And it's because one morning I was, looking at the state of the world and just lamenting the state we were all in. And I prayed, I said, how could we help the world? And I got an answer, I heard the voice and it said, an idea. I said, what idea could save the world? And it said, an idea that everybody could get behind. That made a lot of sense. And I said, well, what idea could everybody get behind? And it said, friends helping friends. So that good feeling when a friend comes into the room and your heart and mind kind of open up and you're just so glad to see them. And what wouldn't you do for a good friend? So it's like how to begin to see everyone as a friend, see everyone as a good friend. And in truth, it's like if you go deeper in the mind and at the soul level, as a friend of mine once said in 1980, there ain't no nother. In other words, everybody is reflecting what you think of yourself at deeper and deeper levels, sometimes earlier in your life, sometimes from childhood. And we hide all these things that we think about ourselves. Mm-hmm. And even in past lives and stuff passed down ancestrally, all of that is just us out there. And so how to join, how to accept, how to forgive, how to let go of past problems. I mean, the things I've found working with people over all these years, over 5 decades, is just amazing stuff that's just not written about because it's all in the subconscious. For instance, and this is something that the Course in Miracles says, is we compensate. It's like when you're independent, like Betty, how independent are you? What percentage?
20-80, because 80.
80%. So how much pain is there still left is being hidden and compensated for?
23 comes up. I don't know if this is true. Right now it feels like more.
Yeah, it feels like more, but we'll take that at face value. The other part that is sacrifice. Mm-hmm. It's like if you have any of those things, you're not in sacrifice, are you, Betty?
Maybe.
And the reason you might, stay super independent and not have a partner is because you don't want to be in sacrifice again to a partner. You don't want to feel like you're carrying them. You don't want to be in sexual sacrifice. Well, that really sucks, but not in a good way, and it's like getting free again. But freedom isn't independence. That's independence is dissociation, and it's a defense. And it's how we build our self-concepts, how we build who we think of ourselves. But then we have to keep supporting these self-concepts. And all of them, unless you go a little deeper, all of them have this face of innocence. Anything nasty, because butter doesn't melt in my mouth. I'm so cool. But if you go to the subconscious, it's like everything that negative that happened to us where we suffered, at some level, we were punishing ourselves. Nobody else necessarily. Certainly we, and then we blame it on that person. We blame it on God. We blame it on our parents. They're always good for a lifetime, right? To blame on. But the thing is, you can't be happy. This rings a bell. You can't be happy if you're blaming people.
Yeah.
Is there a problem you have in your life, Bettina?
Yeah, actually, I'm coming out of a workshop, POV workshop, and yesterday night I had a fight with my dad afterwards.
Ah, okay. So who are you blaming?
Him, of course.
Because you were peaceful, you were holy, you were out of the workshop, you were just looking for the highest in people. And what was so negative that he did? What did he do?
Actually, he was attacking me.
He was attacking you. Bettina, how much do you attack yourself?
20 comes up again, maybe more.
We know you have this thing with 20 and 80.
Yes, you really are.
Sometimes when 80 comes up, you say 20. It's only because I love you that you want to point this out. Just anyhow, it's like, and you weren't attacking your father for anything, were you?
Yeah, he felt attacked.
Yeah, but that's not the question I asked you.
Yeah, yes. Okay, yes.
What were you attacking him about? I mean, Father's Day is coming up in the USA.
It was Father's Day yesterday. Exactly. That's why I went there. Well, here in secret on Facebook, actually, I wanted to give him a present and to invite him for more quality time with me. And he just totally denied it. And he felt overwhelmed. And he said he doesn't want this. He wants to back off. And I was surprised by this. And then so this struggle came out of it.
Yeah. And so you got to be right.
Yes.
You can't be happy and right. It's just, it's one or the other. And if we have a problem, there's something we're being right about. And it's like, basically what anyone does to us, this is all subconscious stuff, is what we're doing to ourselves and what we think we deserve, not consciously, but subconsciously. And sometimes unconsciously, because we bring in things ancestrally that our ancestors haven't cleaned up. And we promised we would do that. And past lives, whether they're a metaphor or not, they still program us and we can heal the program. But we have all these dark beliefs about ourselves, and we get the people around us to act out those dark beliefs. But it's an opportunity. I think I mentioned this once before. It's like the new Ho'oponopono method in Hawaii is you recognize any person or any problem and you say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I made you act out what's in my mind. Please forgive me for making you do that. Thank you. Because I couldn't have found this any other way. Because my defenses are so good, I would have I've whitewashed everything. and I love you because you are part of me. And the more we recognize that, the more we realize that we're all, as the scientist Buckminster Fuller said, we're all on Spaceship Earth. We're all on the same team. You know, if we could get that, but we have these deep splits in our mind. And this is one of the ways to see if you're not happy and how you're happy. It's like, how do you be happy? Well, you give to somebody, which is a form you share. That these are forms of love. You reach out, you extend yourself. Now, sometimes men get extending themselves mixed up with other things, but you know, what are you going to do? Okay, so now it's like, then beyond that, it's like that reaching out, that reconnecting. You know, communication can build a bridge. It can make somebody further away closer. So it's like the closer we are, the happier we are, because the more we're connected with someone, the more we're outside of ourselves. The word ecstasy, from the Latin ecstasis, standing outside yourself. And how do you forget yourself? Because it's all about me. I'm very special. You better treat me like I deserve, Dad, or you're going to get it. You know, and I can prove it. I wasn't a bad daughter. I was such a good daughter. I was the exemplary daughter. You know, I mean, I could walk on water, just if you notice. But sorry to make you my Zen master, my karmic waker-upper. And then we heal that. And then all of a sudden you feel closer to your father. And you don't feel so bad about what went down. And the thing is, if you can remember something negative that happened to you, it's still affecting you. And there's a few things that you buried that you don't even remember. That too. But that's when you're dedicated to your healing, which is to make yourself whole. So how do you do that? Well, the first is you take responsibility for anything going around. You know, if you see shit, it's your shit. That anger, I would never be angry because I am such a peaceful person. I practice mindfulness. But those people out there, they're disturbing my peace. And so it's like, how do we get through that? Well, there's different ways. You know, you can heal yourself. You can help them by forgiving to them, because it's obviously their call for help. They need some help. You know, you were blaming your dad for how he was acting, and you came all workshoppy and huggy and kumbaya and stuff like that. But it's like, but what did you want from him?
I guess love.
Right. That's a normal thing to want. But every time we get wounded or angry, it's like somebody's frustrating us. They're thwarting us because they didn't act the way we thought they should have acted to meet my needs, of course. And the thing is, in A Course in Miracles, these are called idols. And my first shattered idol was about my family. You know, that's a normal thing. You want a happy family, you want happy parents. But if you don't, you don't have to be bereft. You can heal yourself. You can get over yourself. Because actually, if you go deeper and deeper in the subconscious, we use those events so we can build our self-concept. I'm that innocent one. I'm the good one. They're bad parents and things like this. But actually, it's like our soul knew what it was doing. It chose our parents. You know, it's like, you know, I studied perception in philosophy, you know, but basically the most practical thing about perception is if you see it, it's your mirror. So we chose the family, brother, father, mother, sisters. We choose the family that we want to heal those parts of our mind and get close to them and have love feasts, which just makes you so happy. Now, the other aspect that makes you really happy is when you're living your purpose.
Mhm.
kind of, because when that's pouring through you, it's a form of loving everybody. And it may be, it's different at different times in your life, typically.
Mhm.
But also there's certain people we promised we would help. And that's part of our purpose. They're friends, they're
Mhm.
family. They're people sometimes we just meet, but we're the ones that can help
Mhm.
because we're the ones that are there. And so, to do that is to feel joy. So how to become peaceful. And it means that it's like pull back the cover, see all the stuff that was going on, take yourself lightly, take yourself with a sense of humor, and just change your mind about yourself. One of the quotes I love from A Course in Miracles says you could save the whole world if you were willing to change your mind about yourself. So then you wouldn't have to have this face of innocence. Look what they did to poor little Chucky. Look what they did. But underneath, there's attack.
Mhm.
Underneath, there's betrayal, self-betrayal to begin with. It's like we gave up our destiny, which is this joyful, happy spirit. That's how we were created. We were created, love created us as love. That can't be changed. But we thought it could be changed. Our ego says, no, you could change anything. Come on. But then we made a world of illusions, and we did that through separation. So the further I got from you, the more I can make up about you. You're such a, nasty person. But and that's what we do. And we use people, we use our parents, we use our families to separate. And usually at the time when they needed us most, they were calling for us because they were reacting in distress to some painful experience, to some suffering. And we could have intervened. I've seen little children do it, to stop fights with their parents. It's just the most beautiful thing. And to give them those gifts. Now, those gifts are still inside you, and you'll keep having situations come up so you finally learn the lesson. And then there's a sense of release and relief, and there's a sense of more confidence comes in. See, at every level, like at the beginning, we're very dependent on our parents, on our families, on the people around us, our teachers, and then our first partners, our first girlfriends or boyfriends, and we're dependent on them. But if they don't act exactly according to how I think they should act, then we're going to get wounded. We will suffer. And we're trying to have them make up for what wasn't made up for in the past. But what wasn't given to us in the past was where we were actually using it. This is crazy stuff. It's like this was mind-blowing in my first 10 years of getting into the subconscious mind and the unconscious mind. But it's an adventure. You don't need to play Dungeons and Dragons, just heal yourself, because it's so exciting down there. And it's not like what you thought it was. And guess what? You will love yourself more. Because if you don't, you're just in one of those other traps. The ego wants you to hate yourself. Crazy. It's like fire your ego as your personal coach. Find what makes you happy, and don't use it. Don't depend on it. Give and receive. That's the little shift. And then it's like, it's okay what they do, that they just needed to do that. And maybe I can help them because they're having a bad day. We need each other. Everybody needs help. Everybody needs blessings. And blessings are one of the things that steals your happiness is judgment. Of course, we've never judged anybody. But that judgment is a condemnation. And you can only condemn somebody, you can only think they deserve punishment if you feel guilty. And if you feel innocent, you go, oh, poor baby, you need help. Let me go help you. Here, let's feel better together. Because each person is an opportunity to feel better. And it's extending your energy as a gift, as a blessing, because only when you extend yourself like that can you see who the other person is. Because otherwise, all you see is your judgments pinned on them. Because we don't want to pin the tail on the donkey. We want to pin it on, somebody else around us. Thank you for carrying that for me. Yeah, what a friend. And so we learn how to become resourceful, learn how to become truly independent. Because if we don't, we'll take all the wounds and we'll put defenses over top of them. And then we'll just do things our way. We won't listen for the truth. We'll just, it's my way or the highway. And we go through this stage of clearing up then all of our independence and finding out what was really going on in those events. It was just a mistake. And there's some easy ways to actually heal some really big traumas. One of them is bonding, is restoring the bonding. So it's like you could take the worst event of your life. So can you imagine what was the worst event of your life? Was it as an adult or a child?
Subconsciously, as a child, I don't know.
And how old were you?
1.
So it's your whole sense of self. And how many fractures did you get in your own mind?
200.
And then how many layers did those 200 layers go down?
300.
So it's 300 times 200. And so that 1 year old is your sense of self. Mm-hmm. It's when it's really solid in the earth, it just goes all the way up to heaven. Now, of course, that's a metaphor because heaven is really in here, but it's like you have 300 times 200 fractures in that main, pillar that's holding up the building of your life. Oopsie. So let's heal that real quick. So, and the quickest way to do it is with grace. So how about we ask Mother Mary to come in and bring Holy Family bonding into your mind, into all those layers, because every little fragment will replicate itself. We'll keep making little baby fractures. So now just invite the wholeness, because that's what you want. That's the truth. Mm-hmm. And, you can just feel her love. You were going to be independent. I'm sure you weren't very independent in your past lives. I mean, no. When I realized my childhood from conception through 10 years old, and I saw all the things I set up to be independent, I realized, that had a history. It's like I was that independent in all these other lifetimes. Whoopsie. Yeah, and and that wasn't freedom. So this time I learned to go for what's freedom, even though I started off on the wrong foot. Okay, so now how does that feel?
Whole.
Mm-hmm. And how many fractures between you and your family?
1.
And how many layers did that go down?
200.
Ask Mother Mary to bring in Holy Family bonding with you and your family.
Like love pouring down.
And how many fractures did your family have?
300.
And how many layers down?
3.
So again, ask Mary and Jesus and Joseph to bring in Holy Family bonding for your whole family. So there's wholeness there, and there's bonding, there's love and success with ease. And for you, it just starts off in the right direction. And you can ask them, the Holy Family, to put you back on heaven's track instead of the ego's path. Yeah. Okay, how's that feel?
Sweet.
Yeah. And this is just one of so many exercises, things that can be done with buddies, that can be done in groups, because I can't be there all day. So there's time out for people to get to know people. That's one of the joys of a workshop. You get to meet friends, for a lifetime. And you get to meet people who've gone a little bit further along the path and can help you out, and you can help them out. And it can be really a wonderful thing. So depending on how many days you have, I mean, we used to do 22-day workshops. That was pretty amazing. Right? Having 8 days, what happens is the group gets closer and closer together. It gets to be a community, and a problem can't stand where there's bonding. So just by the joining and the closeness, these problems get released, melted away, things like that. So it's like, here we have some lectures, some talks, stuff like that to introduce principles that are can be mind bending. And then we do some healing exercises around that. And we call up focus people, because that person who gets picked by the universe will somehow represent the whole group mind. So as this person moves forward, then what happens is the whole group moves forward. So it's kind of this inner adventure, going with a whole group mind on this inner journey that has us love ourselves more, value ourselves more. And so then if we get over independence, we balance our masculine and feminine, because typically if you're not in partnership, then your masculine side has taken over. And your side, which is your ability to receive, has gotten smaller. So you're working your ass off and you can receive very little reward, and it immediately goes out to pay off the stress. So it's getting back to balance, because then you could have, you might have a partner beforehand, but you won't get to partnership, because we go through stages in partnership, like stages and everything. And that's what I've been doing, is just studying the stages to oneness, studying the stages of relationships, studying the levels that we go through, companies go through, countries go through, to get to a higher level of both giving and receiving. So it's like you get out of that whole aspect of just trying to get things, and you realize that it's like giving and receiving that's going to make it joyful, and you start building then with partnership. And so here we go into interdependence, and it's really wonderful when you've reached that. It's really sunny, it's really happy. But then soon you have enough courage to get through all your personalities, which are like thin, skin tight body stockings, which stop the flow. And basically they're beliefs. That's your ego. And they're preventing you from the natural connection there is with enjoying life. When spring first came to you in Austria, how did you feel?
Overly excited, of course.
Exactly. But let's do a simple little exercise. Okay, let's imagine that you could take 20% of your personalities, stuff you were getting ready to get through anyhow, and you put it on the altar of truth. Because these are things that may look like truth, but they're not. There may things that may be the opposite of truth, but we're still supporting them. They still stop us from being close to each other and loving each other and feeling the flow and the joy that comes with that. So could you put that on the altar of truth? Yeah. And Betty, you like taking off your clothes. So this is taking off ego clothes. Right?
Yeah.
Do I know my interviewer or what? Okay. Now go back to the first day of spring, and without that 20% on top, all those overcoats, how does it feel now?
Freedom. It feels like freedom, naturally. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, like dancing naked in the rain.
Yeah. And And that's just a natural cycle of the earth that we could enjoy. We could enjoy it all if we don't judge it. But here, the first day of spring, that rebirth, that renewal, I'm back and here's the rain. and it's getting through that, because all of those were things where you judged yourself. And where you judged yourself, you'll have events where people are acting badly, but they need your help, and you still have the gift. You still could just simply reach out and bless them, or share that gift that you brought in for just this occasion, or ask heaven for the gift to help them. So it's like, then we once we get through all these personalities, we become more responsive to ourselves, to life, to our partners, to our children, to our parents, and we play more. We have a lot more fun. The average child will laugh about 300 times a day. The average adult will laugh 3 to 4 times.
Oh, no.
Yes, I know. You laugh more, but because you're around good friends.
Yes. Wow.
Right? So then we begin pulling up stuff from the unconscious, from our personal unconscious, things passed down through the family that we're still beating ourselves up about, broken hearts, murders, stealing, all that stuff affects us, but we have the power to heal it. And then there's our past lifetimes, all these stories. See, one of the things we don't realize, so take a look at your life, Betty. If first thing that pops into your mind, what's the name of your movie that you've been writing with your life? Yes, that one. That
Drama story.
Drama story. So you've been writing a soap opera.
I love that. Spanish soap operas.
Spanish soap operas, yes. And how does that make you feel?
Entertained, actually.
Entertained. But what if you could be entertained without the pain, without the total setbacks? And notice that it's keeping things on this level of my ego is better than your ego, and I'm going to win here and have it all, have all the happiness in my life because I have all the good stuff and you have nothing. That's a typical Spanish soap opera, except for our allies. That's different. That's okay. So, but it's like they're all our family in truth. And the more you heal, you go further and further out to find the broken pieces of yourself that can be fixed if you're willing. So it's like we pull up these stories out of the unconscious, or this terrible pain that we don't know where it's coming from. And there is some easy ways to heal the worst pain. So I'm going to give you one. Think of the worst pain of your life, Betty. This is a very easy way. I discovered this within 10 years of doing this healing work over 40 years ago. So it was so important. It was so important for me to learn, so important for others. So do you have that event?
Yeah, the feeling, yeah.
Okay. So build an emotional fire around yourself. How big is the fire?
Tough one. Big.
Big, how high, how wide.
Huge swing.
What happens is that we set up these things and it blinds us to somebody who needs our help. Who's on the other side of that fire that needs your help?
My dad.
Good timing. But it's emotional fire. You're going to let that stopping you from giving him the help he needs?
I can feel his pain through my pain.
Yeah. But when you give to him, how is it? When you get to him,
it's just sweet, just yeah, bonding and holding him. It's good. Bonded.
I was doing a workshop in the Five Lake District near Mount Fuji in 1988, 87. And I saw, I mean, it was like the last big morning. People were on the floor with pain. They had pulled up so much stuff. It was a 17-day workshop. And I saw a young man who had been tortured a good bit of his life by his parents, and he had been healing that. And he was on the floor. The next layer had come up. He was reliving it. And he looked across the room to a woman who was on the floor with pain. And it was a circus, because my best friend in the back was having a heart attack. It's like it was really, just orchestrating the whole thing. I watched him crawl across the floor and take that young woman in his arms and hold her, and they cried themselves into this whole level of healing and joy. It was just one of the beautiful things I'd seen in my life. I can say this with authority, that all of our pain is a misunderstanding. And all of our traps, there's a way through it, because it's not heaven's plan that we be trapped. In 1983 in the UK, I was doing a weekend workshop out in the country. And this, the focus person was a woman who was 80 years old. I used to think that was old, but no, she was talking about how she felt unloved all of her life, because when she was 12, her mother had slapped her. And she felt totally, rejected by her mother. And if you feel rejected by your mother, who do you think will love you? And she realized, as we went into it, I had her become her mother, so she could feel what was going on with her mother, and she could feel her mother's fear for her, and she could feel her mother's stress, and what had caused her to react like that. And she was able to understand that it wasn't about her, it was all the stuff her mother was going through. And she was able to, there was somebody that she had role play her mother, who was also 80 years old. and she was able to walk across the room in forgiveness and embrace her mother and give her the gift that she had for her. And it was really hard. She goes, in the next moment after that exercise, she and her friend, two white-haired ladies walking down the hall in front of me, and I heard the one say to the other, "It was all a mistake. My mother loves me." And she got a whole lifetime of love that was missing. And that's what's waiting for you. Could you feel your father's love for you now, Betty? Can you go back to the day you were born? Was he a happy daddy?
Very proud. Yeah.
What was it one of the best days of his life?
It will make me cry.
Yeah. That's the only important thing. The rest of stuff just got in the way, was misunderstandings. But you could have this sweetness, and you could have this love for your dad back. And do you realize how that will leap forward your relationships with men? Yeah. And you came to help men. Yeah, we need it. Just say it. We need all the help we can get. Men helping men, women helping men. Yeah, just
Sweet.
Yeah. And then you realize, like, I brought in this gift, this world level gift of redemption. And then you move from partnership, interdependence, into radical dependence.
Mhm.
And radical dependence is where you're depending on heaven. So then you start bringing in even more miracles. You bring in collective gifts. You bring in redemption. You bring, because these collective gifts show up as pandemics. They show up as wars. They show up as starvation, economic downturns on the earth. But it's healing these things at this level. And there's ways to do it, but we're giving up this sense of self that we made through blood, sweat, and tears. That's how we built this sense of self, and we'll defend it at all costs. But the other way is the way of peace. And we give up our self-concepts, which, of course, A Miracle says is the biggest idol there is of all the things that we're trying to prove and get. It is like who I am, respect me, just, or I'll call my uncle who's in the mafia, and then you'll be sorry, just, it's like, this is what we're doing all the time. And we don't realize these connections because we hide so much from our, but all of a sudden we're starting to open up these really deep patterns in the mind. And these falls that we had, and we regain ourselves. And, the healing path back to oneness. And, every relationship is a chance to increase the love, which will increase the self-love, increase the connection with heaven. So we know our back's covered. We can do anything. Mm-hmm. But that's having to give up these self-concepts that are all built on pain or shame or guilt or something like that, or failure or valuelessness. So it takes courage to go down there, but boy, the payoffs are great. Yes. And sometimes we can't do anything else because the pain or the problem in our life is so big, we don't know what else to do. So we choose healing. So be happy, love everybody, give and receive. And people are so bad at receiving because, look at the judgment on the feminine. It's like to be able to receive. Heaven is trying to give you a whole universe. And we're lucky if we let in enough honey for our tea. Or let in enough honey for ourselves. Honey. It's like, but it's getting through all of this. It's getting through all of this and letting heaven give us everything. Let heaven give us the love. Let heaven give us the guidance so that we can give up this piece by piece. And when you let go of yourself, there's this fear, I'll be nothing. No, you'll be everything. Because what's behind all that is the oneness in which you were created, the love in which you were created, the light in which you were created that everyone's a part of. So we're getting rid of all this separation. So it's a lot to get rid of. And of course, writings around the course, it said it took millions and millions of years to get to this point of separation. And it may take that many more to get back, or another million. But the thing is, every time we bring in a miracle, it can save 1,000 years of karma for the whole earth. And it can be the simplest thing, but it's like, let's learn our lessons. We set up certain soul lessons. Your heartbreaks are the soul lessons you didn't learn yet. And you can learn them. It's really not that hard if you're willing to take a peek. And most people are peekers, so they like to be curious about yourself. And, and underneath the self-hatred and the self-condemnation, there's light, there's truth. None of that's true. And I've worked with people who've done terrible things and would have continued to do terrible things until they got back to their innocence. And one way to get back to your innocence is to reach the light inside you. You reach how you were created, and then you begin to see light around you. And there's exercises in peace that can do that, to get back to our true identity. Then what's the problem?
Yeah.
And
Thank
then
you.
you just love everybody. It's like that. It's like I was just at my daughter's wedding in Paris, and there was so much love. And I was saying, this is the way the world is meant to be.
Yeah. A wedding.
And the day after, the wedding picnic, and it was just so sweet, and it was fun, and it was healing, and yeah, fun is a great way to heal.
Let's make it a big wedding in Hamburg for the 18 workshop.
Well, it's with us, with ourselves, with us, with heaven, with us, with each other. And then, it's play.
Thank you. And we are looking forward to play a little bit.
Me too.
You for your time. Looking so forward to seeing you, and all the German-speaking trainers will be there.
Yes, they will.
As well. And 1st of July, we will start.
Okay, Bettina.
Thank you, Doug. Have a great week. Kisses to Lancy. Thank you for your time.
We'll pass it on. Okay. Ciao, ciao.
Bye-bye.